I guess people call me type A, right? Very high energy. I would describe that, and I get, when I talk to people, or both adults and children, I get comments about how I'm inspirational, motivating. Throughout my entire life and childhood, I was always trying to, really do a really good job at everything. My parents, my mom especially, my dad passed away when I was very young, so my mom instilled in, I'm the youngest of four, so for those parents, they can relate to, the youngest of four is going to be kind of a, by the time they get to the fourth child, you're kind of, they're too busy for you in some ways, right? Which I understand because I have four children. So, and I really kind of try to make sure that my fourth child gets more attention because of that. It's funny how you do that as a parent. But I love helping people, guide them and helping them come over challenges, get unstuck, right? I hear people say that, well, I hate my job, I hate my life. And that's just really not healthy for somebody, right? So how do you help guide a person to really change their life and put a plan together to do that? And so I look at everything that way. Everything has to be planned. Everything has to be coordinated. And if you ever were in my house on a Saturday or Sunday, you would laugh because I have those sticky boards, they'll peel off whiteboards and the papers, and they're big, like a big sticky note, and I stick them on the wall, and my kids will see the paper come out, and they're like, oh, now here she goes, and I write down the list of all the things we have to do for the weekend, and it's divide and conquer. It's a team. How are we going to get this all done? Because mom works all week long. I want to spend time with my kids, quality time, right? So how do we get through this weekend and get these things done that we know we have to do? And it's everything. It's like, Thomas needs new shoes, so okay, we got to get that done this weekend. Jonathan needs to go to tennis lessons, that's on the list. And the rooms need to be clean, laundry needs to be done, whatever it needs to be, it's on that list. And it's a reminder for me too. Don't forget to stop at the library to drop the books off, or don't forget whatever. And it's just a visual. I'm a very visual person. Because I'm visual, I need to see it in front of me. So I use tools to help me do that. I'm also very much, I was a late bloomer, and I'll talk a little bit about late bloomers. A lot of people out there are late bloomers. If you look at people, and most late bloomers are people that become more successful than their peers, because the fact that they're working up to the steam, right? And this is where it's kind of building that steam for somebody who is, and recognizing somebody who might be a late bloomer as a child. It's really important. So part of why we connect the dots is what it is, or evolved, was because I was one of those children who, if I was exposed to some of these things that were out there at the time and technology, it would have given me a broader grasp of what I could do and what I could be, who I could be or become. That's kind of really where the mission of We Connect the Dots came from, was to take that passion that I have around helping others find the right spot, find that passion that fires them up and makes them feel good every day. Going to work should not feel like work.
Your company, We Connect the Dots, can you share with us what's the mission of the organization?
Yeah, so the mission is to inspire and educate students in STEAM, right? So STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And doing it in very creative ways to create that passion and energy so that the students are empowered for lifelong learning on their own, right? So they get that energy that says, oh, I need to go learn this, or I want to know more about that, to uncover things that they've never maybe even seen before. And I've done this for a number of years throughout my career, creating communities and programs for kids and integrating. And that's out of being a parent of four children and seeing my child or my child's friends wanting more, and the teachers not being able to offer it, right? And the teachers not really being able to offer it because they teach, and their job is to teach the foundations, right? And I think as parents and as a community, our job is to weave in those things of real life so that we give them the workforce skills of the future. So We Connect the Dots. It's really about evolving our children and making them become lifelong learners so they can evolve us, right, into the future, and that they're inspired to do it.
Why did you decide to build this organization in the first place?
Again, seeing the need and the opportunity. Right? This is a 20-year vision. So this is something I've been planning for 20 years, literally. And trying to do it in little pieces here and there. And the name We Connect the Dots came out of, I was constantly doing that. People would say, oh, I need this, I need that. Oh, I can connect you with somebody. And I started saying, well, what do I do? And people would ask me, who are you? What do you do? And I said, well, I kind of connect the dots. And so I went out and looked for the domain name, and I found it. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do something with this. And then it just, after conversation after conversation, it started to evolve. And where it really started to gel and become real for me was going to Harvard. I felt that in order to do this right, and I've started businesses before, and I felt like this is one I want to continue and grow, and I wanted to do it really well. And I know I have some personal gaps in my learning. So how do I make sure that I do that? So made that investment to go into the general management program at Harvard to bring this to life and having conversations with people all over the world. I was in a class of 123 people from globally, and 80% were global. The rest were U.S. Citizens. And so it gave me an opportunity to have the story, to talk it, to hear people's opinions, to let it kind of form itself, and to really understand where we could bring the most impact and what the real true need was. Having lots of conversations with teachers and parents and industry leaders who were struggling with trying to find resources. And so, throughout my career, I see and hear from partners in the industry that do systems integration and technology integration, and even, health and human services, and all the different avenues that STEAM touches, right? Engineering companies who will say to me, we don't have any resources. We have to go, we have to go outside, and we need local resources here. How do we find them? Can you help us? And so just a need. And so how do you connect the dots to all those components and bring them together so they can solve the problem that we have to solve? Because it's not going to be done by one person, right? So that's why not-for-profit, because this is not about making money. This is about solving a problem that everybody needs to solve for our own benefit. Diversity. Diversity is important. We know that in a diverse world, we can be more innovative, right? A woman's opinion and a man's opinion are very different. And cultures too, right? The diversity in everything. So you look at a team, and you look at a team that can be most successful together and that they gel, is they all have the same values, but they have diverse opinions. And so we end up not having a product that's very much designed and looks and feels like something a man would want, right? And reality is 80% of the decisions that are made out there that involve technology decisions are made by women, right? The technology in the household, all those things are made by women. So when I got into this very young, I fell into the technology industry because I went for a job interview when I was 18. And my mom actually, she saw that passion in me, and she was at a Chamber of Commerce breakfast, and there was a gentleman sitting next to her who was just running a computer business, and he was looking for somebody to help out and do some work there, and he said, well, my daughter would love that, and would you be interested in talking to her? And so he introduced me, and then I started doing really building computers. And so building computers, again, I was the only female. It was just all men. And so the more I got into the business and the industry, the more I was alone. And so this was the world of when Nobel was prime and big. And I started building a community because I felt like I needed somebody else to talk to that had the same goals and aspirations and values, and I could talk intellectually with them about what I was doing and what I wanted to learn and help them learn too, and we could learn from each other. So I started building a community and got involved in NUI, which is Network Users International. So I was on their board, and I helped build these communities all over the country and internationally too. And so it was a lot of fun. And what I found is that I was empowering other women because they felt now that they weren't alone, right? They could be part of this. And women would come to me and say, you need to go speak for this group here. We need more women engineers. And so I would be, sure, I'll do that. Yeah, definitely, because I'm a motivational person, right? So I would inspire them, motivate them, and we get more women. So I was like, this is kind of a great way to help other women. So I would continue building more communities. And everything I did, whenever I would struggle with how do you get people to talk and collaborate, I would build a community. And then we would talk and we'd collaborate, and I would find ways to just bring a lot of value to people to come in and to share, and for them to feel like they were getting an experience.
Laurie, how can we encourage women to move into information technology more?
I think that what's helpful is women who are outspoken and go out and talk about how empowering it can be for you and how many opportunities are there for women. Right, so I do that. Whenever there's a STEM, council or opportunity, I'll get called, or I'll find them, and I'll go and I'll speak. And I have some friends who do it too, other women that are in the industry, and we kind of go together. And it's funny, we'll go and we'll be asked to speak at a panel, and then we'll get there and see the other person we know. We're like, oh, how you doing? But it's always the same women. So we need to expand that circle a little bit. There are a lot of very talented women out there, and we just need to give them the courage to share their stories, with other women about how they've managed life, managed families, and doing this together, and manage the diversity challenge. Right? And this is part of what our conference hopes to do for the students, is to teach. We want to have a great ratio of hopefully 50-50 in the male-female ratio, and we want a part of our curriculum in the conference, a learning experience, I should say, will be to teach the children, the young women, right, how to really, what does it mean to be in a diverse team? What does it mean to be the only woman in a team? Right? How does that feel? And also to have young men feel the same way. What does it feel when you're the only guy on the team? Right? What does that feel like? And how can you help make sure that everybody's feeling inclusive? Right? So they're not feeling like they're all by themselves. And when you look at young, and where we lose them is that when they go to college, if the university that they're attending, and they're attending a STEAM or STEM career, we start to lose them because they get into that world and they see, and they can't, there's no social, and it starts to, so we see the numbers declining at that point. So organizations like MIT does a really good job, so we need to look at organizations who do a great job, who keep that, so if you look at statistics, and this is the wonderful thing about the internet, we've got all this business intelligence, right? Why aren't we using it? So harnessing that business intelligence to let us step back and look at it visually and say, okay, what's wrong with this picture? If MIT can increase their numbers, and over here another university's not, how can they learn from them to say, what are you doing? What are the programs that you're offering your young female students to ensure that they feel connected, right? And what can we do as other organizations outside, the not-for-profits that are driving this kind of mission? How can we partner with them to ensure that we're giving them the right, we're empowering them with what they need to continue that learning and to be inspired to continue it and not move away from it. And I think naturally women want to save the world, right? It's ingrained in us. It's part of our genetics, right? We want to nurture, we want to help. So taking those qualities in women and applying, and not to say that men don't have those qualities too, but taking those qualities and showing them how technology can save the world will drive them, I think, into those directions better. So bringing awareness to what the opportunities are, and that it's not just that techie, programming and geeky. It's not that. There's so much more to it. And what happens is that gap between where they actually see the result of their learning, we need to give it to them sooner, right? Show them that they can be part of creating a new technology that saves lives. Or introduce a new program that has integrated software that helps children learn better, right? So if they understand how the end result of their learning will empower other people, I think women would come in and be more likely to do that. So we hope to bring some of that creativity and innovation to our programs.
I know that you're passionate about learning, you understand the learning business. So I want your opinion, what is the most effective learning method?
I believe experiential learning is the most effective. I think that a combination of all of the learning types, because everybody has a different learning style. So you can attract a certain group of people who can learn off of watching a video, right? But not everybody's going to be doing that. Not everybody's going to be successful with that. And it's important that we're not looking at learning as, okay, everybody's going to learn this way, because we'll lose a lot of value to those who don't learn that way. So by having a mix of all, and that's, again, where we're trying to focus, is giving young adult an experience that has a combination of online, offline, and letting them figure out what's best for them. Right? And teaching them how to tell. What are the clues that you can do? What are the signs that you can see that your learning experience was really impactful to you, right? So that if they get a taste of it all and they can say, wow, that exercise that we did there, that I get it, I understand it, right? And so now I know that if I want to make sure that I'm really understanding the concepts, that maybe I'll do a little bit of this and then I'll apply it here. And so we're teaching them those self-awareness for that, what's my learning style? And again, that can evolve too, especially on the age of the child is at, right? So we're targeting 13 to 18-year-olds in our program, and we hope that it'll bring value to younger students too, and by what we do for the teachers in our programs. But want to really make sure that we're addressing the different learning styles and helping students bring the self-awareness of what that means to them. So that, again, where do they feel most comfortable? And I've got 4 kids and they all have different learning styles. My oldest, he has to be in a classroom. He has to experience, he has to touch it. Where my third child is he could read a book and he's good. So, and then my youngest is just learning his, he's trying to figure out what that means for him. So his is very much the flavor of all of those. Because I'll give you an example, a story of my youngest child, who's all my children are amazing, but my youngest is very inquisitive. And he wants answers to everything. He wants to know why. So giving him a book that's about a story that's a mystery is not of interest to him. He doesn't want to read a book that doesn't tell him something or doesn't teach him something. So he gravitates to books that have a lot of visuals and that he learns something that's real. He'll say to me when I'm reading a story, he'll say, did that really happen? And I'll have to explain to him the difference of real and not, and what the author's trying to teach you. And Brandon Mull is an author that I love, and reading in our household is part of a daily thing. All my children, two of my children walk and read at the same time. But my youngest, I had a lot of challenges trying to get him to have a love for reading. So Brandon Mull helped us do that. And what he does is, Brandon Mull is Fablehaven is the book, the series we're reading now, and I read to him every night for an hour. And we talk about the story. We talk about the points and the messages. And last night there was one section in the book that we were reading, and where it talked about an emotional situation where the young girl was having something was told to her that was very emotional, and she had to talk about it, and she couldn't. She didn't want to talk or respond, and the author described it so well that my 8-year-old said to me, well, what does it mean that her emotions were coming up and she felt uncomfortable? And I said to him, well, she was about to cry, and she knew that if she spoke that she would start crying. And he said to me, well, oh, I know, that happens to me too. So what do? How do you stop yourself from crying? And this 8-year-old, my youngest, is very challenged with his emotional management. And we're trying to teach him how to manage it, right? How to not get so upset over something. And I said, well, some people can take a deep breath. They can drink a glass of water. They can go for a walk. And kind of get your mind off of the topic and then calm your emotions down, and that works for you. So sometimes speaking at that moment may not be the right thing to do for you, because it'll get you, very emotional, and you won't be able to manage it as well. So he loved that. So I like to read stories and then really dig into the message that the author's trying to do. And I think that we do that with our learning experiences the same way. When we apply it, right? We teach it and say, okay, now you've learned all this great stuff. How is it used in the real world? Math and science, and how does it all weave together? And if you look at T and technology and the STEAM, it's in all of them, right? So that's why we're focusing on that, and that's why bringing a team of people who are industry experts in technology and innovation to teach this other aspects of it in the real world scenarios and give the students an experience can be amazing.
Why do you think it's important to build a learning organization?
If you want to innovate, and I'll talk about the innovation is key, right? If you're doing if things are not evolving and shifting and changing, then maybe new knowledge isn't needed. But if you're, and that's just not reality. I can't think of one business that would be in that world, right? So if you look at where we are and where we've been, you need to learn constantly, because if you don't learn, how can you make things better? So my favorite word is kaizen. So kaizen is a Japanese word for continuous improvement, right? And I love that. And that's probably one of my mantras, is that, continuous improvement, and I teach my children that. So the only way to continuously improve is to learn, right? So we need to learn what interests us, right? And those varying learning experiences can help, and that's where the diversity comes in, right? So learning behavior styles, right? That's important. And because of the technology evolution and what we know more about neuroscience and our brains and how we behave, we can now look at things differently. So if we want to do something to change people's lives, or we want to create something that brings value, are we looking at what the impact is long term? Are we looking at the behavior we're trying to create, right? Or if we create something, what behavior are we looking at that may impact as a result of doing this? Because I think sometimes we don't think things through, right? And we create something, and then we end up seeing, okay, wait, maybe that wasn't a good idea, and it's too late, right? It's already here, and so we didn't. Maybe if we thought a little bit more about it, and did some a little experimenting on it, and to see what the long-term impacts were before we make these big decisions, might benefit everybody. And I'll use the traffic light as an example. Traffic lights are interesting, but if you put a traffic circle in, the behavior you create is very different from a traffic light that you put in that's red and green and yellow, right? Especially in a very rural area where people just want to go whoosh. And when you're teaching your child to drive, I've heard parents say this, and children say this, or young adults, is that yellow means go faster, right? So it's run the light, not slow down, right? And so if you go through a traffic circle, you have to slow down. You can't go fast. So the red light and green light's a great concept, but is it really helping us? It's causing more accidents, and now you're seeing that evolution, and I'm seeing it in my communities where they're taking out traffic lights and putting in circles because they know that it makes people do the right thing. So if you want to create and change behavior and you want to innovate your business, you need to teach people what it means, teach them behavioral science, teach them team building and leadership and coaching. Coaching is so important. I think that every leader should have a coach and should make sure that all their teams have coaches or create a coaching style or a coaching culture. I believe that you can create coaching cultures in an organization. And I've done that, and it's pretty amazing what it does if you can, because leadership saying you should do this is naturally our brain says, no, maybe I shouldn't do that. So because that's how we're designed, right? Our minds are designed, our brain is designed to protect us. And so naturally when somebody says something to you that you don't really necessarily agree with or believe in, depending on your personality, you may go, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to go in that direction. Whereas if you ask cognitive questions and you get somebody really thinking about what it is you're trying to solve and asking them deep thinking questions, so they start to go back to their own mind and think about how they solve that problem, they'll stop coming to you eventually because they'll start to think about how I can be self-empowered to come up with my own insights and spend some time thinking, or even soundboarding, right? Instead of having somebody come in your office and say, I need you to tell me how to do this, you can say, I'd like to bounce this off of you, right? Can I bounce an idea off you and a thought off you? And then you can listen, be present, and listen to that person so that you can really understand where they're coming from and how can you get them into deeper thought so that they can solve their own problems. And doing that on teams and teaching them those techniques can be amazing for an organization.
What do you think makes a good leader?
A good leader is someone who has a vision first, right? What is it they're trying, what are they leading? So is that vision clear, and can you articulate that vision, and you bring a personal connection to the people you're sharing it with, right? So that they really see that you're altruistic, right? And that you really understand what they're trying to accomplish. And are you connecting with the people that need to drive it? Because you certainly are going to do it. That's what a leader is. They help and encourage and motivate others to drive towards that mission with you, right? And it's truly with, not without you. So a leader needs to really be someone who can clearly articulate a vision, can inspire and motivate people, and can see people's potential. If you have a team that you are not placing people in the right roles or really looking at their talent and their potential to do more and guiding them into where they can, maybe you see a spark in someone and you think, wow, and you talk with them about it and say, hey, I really see that you have this incredible passion around communities and you really connect with people well. Is there something you could do around that in your role that you do today that could help us in our business? Could you think about that a bit? And so now what you're doing is you're putting that onus on the person to get creative about empowering the overall vision with something that they're good at. And it drives them forward. So if a leader can create that positive momentum in their team to get them going and get that, it's almost like the domino effect, right? It just goes and then the energy creates and that person then leads the next, and teaching leaders to be leaders. So a leader needs to not only lead, but teach the people that are around them closest that are going to be leaders of others to how to be really true, strong and powerful leaders.
Does the leadership changes during crisis? Have you ever faced crisis and during that time you find yourself doing things differently? If so, how?
I think that everybody has a natural style, right? And you have different, ways of doing things, and everybody, and there's a whole, science behind that as well. And knowing your personal style is important because when you're in a crisis, that's what will come out. Because you can be an actor, right? Which you can play multiple roles. You can play a persuader. You can play an analytical person. You can play all the quadrants that we have out there, and it's important to be able to, right? Depending on the scenario, where are you? But when you're in a crisis, your natural tendencies will come out. So know it, be self-aware of it, and make sure that you're recognizing that you're driving forward and you're not letting the emotional impact of the crisis change how you do things. Because it will become very self-aware to those around you. And this is something that we all struggle with, and I struggle with it personally, and I'll backpedal and say, whoa, that didn't come across the way I wanted it to. Hold that thought, let me reword that. Because you can sense it, right? And really being open and honest with your team when you're in a crisis to say, hey, we're in a crisis right now, we're all in crisis mode. We've got to be really open and transparent with each other to get through this. How are we going to work through this together to make sure that we don't fall apart, right, in that crisis mode? We want it, because crisis can do one of two things. It can bond people together, or it can break them apart. And so you want to bond them together, not break them apart. So being, and I'll call it mitigating risk. Having the mitigating risk or the forethought to think about what it is that could happen here, and how do you make sure that you're being really aware of that and watching for those signs that things are not going, and then maybe stepping back and regrouping. It's okay to step back and regroup. I think a lot of leaders will say, well, I made the decision, I'm going to do this, and no matter what, we're doing it. And sometimes that's not the right thing to do, because there's no pride here, or it's courage enough to say, maybe I made a mistake, and I need to backpedal a little bit, and let's regroup and think about this. And I'd love your advice. And from meeting, this is being very transparent with your team and saying, what do you think? How would you solve this problem, right? And so that they feel empowered too, because it's amazing by having sounding boards of other people and mentors that you can go to. When you're in a crisis mode, the people who've had the experience, so if you're in a crisis and you don't, all right, who do I know in my network that's been through a crisis like this? Can I go to them and talk to them about their experience? Now, granted, their experience may be very different than yours, but I can almost guarantee that after the conversation with that person, you will come out with some insight about how you might take that knowledge that they shared with you and apply it in your own experience.
Why do you think it's important to invest on employee training and development?
Some people feed off of that, right? You need to know how, there's a lot of great tools out there today. Career Leader is one of the ones I love to use. And it's a way to assess your employees to see what motivates them. And for me personally, I want people who are motivated to learn. So that's the quality that I look for, right, in my team, because that's part of our values in our organization. So if I have a team of people that are motivated by learning and I take that away from them, I'm not going to be an effective organization. So, and I think that with creative ways of thinking about how you teach and how you provide learning can be done with minimum costs, right? People need to get creative. They need to think of, it's not about how much money you spend, it's how much value you get from it, right? So if you're looking at really understanding and working together with everybody, what's our learning plan going to look like this year? And in a group, and say, okay, what do you want to learn? What do you think is going to help us bring us to the next level of our organization that we need to learn more about? And how do we introduce that in a way where our teams are all learning about it? And so then you can get creative and you can get more cost effective by providing courses that are maybe in groups, right, and not individuals. In some cases, maybe you have one resource that you do need to spend some dedicated time on that person. So you do that. But it needs to be thought out each year, and it needs to be revisited each year in an operational process. And I think a lot of organizations do a great job at that. They really do. The ones that know that and value that training and learning is important will make that investment in that development process that's a joint collaboration between the employee and the employer.